Welcome, Christophe, to Leading Beyond the Lab. I'm really happy to have you on board.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, fine.
Beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year, very cold in
Yeah.
Switzerland, foggy everywhere, but doing well.
So if you'd like to kick us off with telling us about really where you got to where you are now and talk us through your journey and some of those key milestones.
Yes, so actually, I started my career. I'm a cardiologist by background. I worked in the hospital in Brussels. And I was passionate by cardiology since ever. So I did the training, work in the hospital. And by the time I had more and more interactions with the pharma and pharma companies. And it was a time with new drugs like ACE inhibitors, picking up statins, angiotensin receptor blockers, a lot of new drugs in cardiovascular really brought by the pharma. And I was asked to do a lot of presentations to them. So I had a lot of contacts, and that's pushed me a little bit
Oh yeah.
slowly to the pharma.
So you kind of got exposure to them, which kind of
Yes,
led sent you down that path. Was there a conversation that you had with someone at some
yeah.
point that kind of was a bit of a turning point?
There were some conversations, but before a lot of interactions with the sales reps, starting with the sales reps in the
Yeah, yeah.
hospitals, then the clinical teams because I was participating in clinical trials, then giving presentations to health care professionals, GPs, on cardiovascular drugs. And then the inflection point came when, as a cardiologist, a friend of mine, he was medical director at Bristol Myers, and he introduced me to this world.
Yeah.
He taught me about a course on pharmaceutical medicine. So then I looked to that, and it was very nice because it looked like working in a pharma was a specialty, like you would say cardiology or something else. So I followed that course, then being exposed to regulatory, clinical trials, drug development, pharmacology, um, and that increased my interest more and more. At the point that guy had an open position in his team, so I applied. Then the position was dropped, and say okay. Then I really wanted to go to that route, and maybe I will explain the why in a minute. But then I sent my CV to few companies, and finally got a job at Sanofi. That's how I entered.
How did you find that transition into big pharma?
Wow, that was that was crazy because you work in the hospital days and nights, crazy time, never stopping, busy. Then you enter the world of pharma. You enter the office. You have a company car. Okay, you have a
Yeah.
phone. You have a computer, and then you start to meet the colleagues, marketing guys, uh, and the first months was incredible because I was just like their consultant. I didn't have the impression to work, really. So it was going to the coffee machine, talking to them, chit-chatting, explaining, what was the hospital world or physician was prescribing and why and how, being a consultant, really. And slowly, I got into the job, a real job. But the beginning was fascinating, really.
Then the baptism of fire came, and you were fully
Yes, and
ingrained.
then needed to work on medical plans, clinical protocols, going around the hospitals to present the drugs, the clinical programs, and so on.
And how did you set from the goals and the hierarchy that you had in a medical setting? And how did that evolve when you were in Sanofi?
But then when you are in the hospital, not private practice, but when you work in a hospital, you have the chief of clinic, the chief of the department, and so on. And so the hierarchy, if that's your question, was similar in a company.
Yeah, yeah,
The But there was a big difference because in the company, everyone within different departments, with the hierarchy you were mentioning, everyone is working really in the same direction. To push the business, to bring drugs on the market, to really push that same direction all together. In the hospital, it was very different. It was more tensions. People wanted to to move faster than others. It was not the same dynamic. And that's what I really enjoyed a lot in the industry at the beginning.
Yeah, I can imagine actually. And so when you got to industry, you obviously had a really exciting and interesting career that spanned different companies, regions, roles. Could you talk us through some of your key achievements and some of the key touch points that were really kind of exciting for you?
Yes. So so after Sanofi, I moved to other companies. What was very exciting first also was to have teams. So I had the clinical team engaging with the team, developing people. That was very, very exciting. And the turning point to answer your question was, I was at Bristol Myers. I was in a meeting in the headquarters in Paris, EU headquarters. And then the head of EU medical came to me and asked me if I would be interested to go to a job rotation in Princeton for a couple of months. And that was really the turning point of my career. So I said yes, and I called my wife. So it was a bit of a tension. And then I spent 3 months and even more than in Princeton at the headquarters. That was really fascinating. And that was a big turning point in my career, really.
Why was it a turning point? What was the key difference?
So you are really at the heart. First, I didn't mention, but I come from Belgium, so I was in the Belgium affiliate. So when you are in EU meetings, in pharma, and you have the big countries, Belgium is almost always a small country, small business. So your voice is interesting, let's say, but not very impacting so much. But when you are in the headquarters, you are really at the heart of everything. So you work on key projects, building the future of company, but also future of drug development or launch of new drugs on the market. So I could really feel that, and that was very, very interesting.
So from someone listening, a perspective, you would suggest that being in the headquarters is the hive of activity where the key decision makers are. You're almost, just for osmosis, you're able to kind of network with people, which helps you in your career path.
Exactly. So the networking was very important. And indeed, after that job rotation of a couple of months, I was coming regularly and then knocking at the doors of many guys and leaders just to interact and to learn from them. And then that really was key indeed to build a network. But that's almost everywhere. The key difference is indeed that you really feel that you are at the heart of the decision points and decision-making process.
So what, if you were going to summarize 2 or 3 key learnings or lessons for the listeners who are, scientists or physicians looking to join industry, what would those key lessons be, do you think?
Yes, so I would say when you are in contact with people from the industry, the pharma or the medical device, listen to them. You will always get something. You will also, if you have the opportunity to support them in terms of presentations, just go for it. And then you will touch even more the environment. That's really it's connect to people, And then this pharmaceutical medicine course, which is everywhere in Europe, there is a faculty in the UK and other countries, would be really a very good entry point to learn more about the environment and pharmaceutical medicine in general.
And once they're in the company, what would your lesson be or your advice be on how to make the biggest impact, find the best role for yourself?
You need to be passionate with what you do. So as we talk about medical role, you need to understand what your colleagues from the business want. You need also to share your medical perspective and to be because as a doctor, in the industry, you are there to protect the patients. That's very important. But you need to do that on a constructive way to help your colleagues from marketing who maybe have not all the keys and clues to educate them on that. Not being a blocking point, but to educate them, to push them. So my recommendation would be really to connect with people, to be passionate, to be enthusiastic, and then think about indeed what you can bring to the medical community, the patients, the physicians, and how you can make a change.
Well, it's inspiring, isn't it, I suppose, and super fulfilling. On that journey, you've obviously worked in big companies, smaller companies, mid-sized companies. What were the key things you've learned from that?
So they're all different. And it's not because it's a small company that people talk more.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are in a big company, and one of the key issues in companies is the communication. So that's the main complaint of the people, the teams, communication. So, and you believe, oh, I'm in a small organization with 20 guys. It will be easy. You will get information. No, that's not true. So it really depends on you and the people. So for me, the key learning is indeed the communication is key everywhere. And it's how you relate to people, how you communicate, and how you want to push the ball forward, which is the same in a small or in a big organization. The difference is that in a very small organization, you see your impact more quickly.
Okay. And how do you build the trust?
The trust is, it's by delivering, being consistent when and how you deliver projects, answering questions. If you look, the physicians in the hospital, they are so busy. You send them an email, they take days, weeks to answer. Of course, in the industry, it's another world. You need to be quick on the ball, to be accountable, reliable, and that's how you build a trust. And by the knowledge also, because you are surrounded by guys from marketing, and if you can explain them in easy way, nicely way, how drugs are working or business is working from a medical standpoint, then you really gain points and earn trust.
And when you've ascended to the CMO role and a very senior level of responsibility, that's the challenge in itself. What do you think enabled you to climb the ladder, if you like, above others?
So that a big difference is the team, building a team, relating to your team. That's another fascinating role that I have not touched yet in the industry, that you don't have, especially if you do private practice as a doctor. But even in hospital, you don't have a team really. You are part of a department, but you don't have a team with you. In a company, having a senior role, usually you have a team, large or small, but you have a team. And this is another fascinating point of the job, because then you relate to people. You develop people, you work with this human substance in a way, which is very, very interesting.
I always found that when you lead people, the first thing you have to really learn is empathy.
Yes.
Yeah. And parenting helps that as well, I think.
And we did a lot during COVID time, actually. We relate a lot to the team remotely to indeed having this empathy with all the team members, and that was very interesting.
So, what were the key achievements later in your career, in your more recent roles with Elucent? Are there any key milestones or achievements that you found that this is super fulfilling, this is why I did this job? Yeah,
it's bringing new drugs on the market, or new device. So I take, for example, pulmonary fibrosis, work in a very small startup, and bring the first approved drug in that field. To treat this severe disease, these patients which are dying, and all these pulmonologists were desperate to get a drug, and we could do that. So that's a nice achievement. And then you also see these doctors, so they become experts, key opinion leaders. They can go on stage and present data from drugs. So you have this relationship where you also help others to become leaders on that sense. So that's one. And also new medical devices, bringing a new heart valve on the market. It's fascinating because then you have the technology, you have the competition, you have the other device, but you are really part of a journey of a big picture.
With the KOLs and investors and the various key stakeholders at senior levels of responsibility, how are you able to have an impact and meaningful communications with them? So
when you talk about investors, for example, what you need is to understand them, to listen to them. So it's not about delivering a pitch in 2 minutes about your drug, your device, and try to sell it. It's really to understand what are the interests, what are the questions, to tackle that very quickly. And so you build, and that's also another way to build a trust. And then you build a relationship. You show how your device or drug can impact the medical community. What is the big picture of that? And then you create this relationship. You bring them with you, and then you are more successful in a way.
Do you think that's a difficult skill to master?
No, it's not difficult. It's about relating to people. It's about owning your project. You need to own your project to be the face of your drug, of your device, of your company, and then people can relate to that. It's like you learn on the spot, like leading a team. You don't become a charismatic leader from one day to another. You learn to do that. You enjoy to do that. So that's how things are working also with investors.
And is there any books you read which helped you on that journey at all?
Not so much. I at one point, and it was in the first half of my career. There was at Bristol Myers. We had a lot of trainings organized by human resource. I remember how to feed the pool of emotions, for example, to connect with people. So there were some trainings like that, but not really books. It's I read novels, I read a lot, but not this kind of books really.
And do you find that, what I've found anyway, that the industry is changing significantly? So things are innovating, optimizing, AI has been talked about as this new revolution. And how do you see the industry evolving and changing in your space?
Yeah, it will change dramatically. There will be new jobs. And I've said that, I remember, to my team a couple of years ago, that jobs today that does not exist, and in 5 years they will exist. But no, I think it's in 6 months, not years. No, AI will revolutionize completely the way to work in the industry as well. If you take, for example, literature search, building presentations, searching for congresses. For example, I needed to map all the congresses recently. I asked ChatGPT, where are the big congresses in Europe? And give me the date, give me the deadline for the abstracts. Then create for me the slide. And then you save incredible amount of time.
I've never thought about it in terms of that usage. That's crazy, isn't it?
And also about analyzing database from doctors. So, this KOL mapping. You want to understand, if your KOL is connected to other KOLs in EU, US, using AI, you would be able to do that, or you are already able to do that much more easily.
From a biotech perspective, as we all know, the general adage is that 9 out of 10 won't be successful, unfortunately. So do you think that AI can improve that? And if so, how?
That's really the beginning. In drug development, AI could help also to design drugs, but that's a very, very early stage. AI could help in getting in more depth of the analysis of the clinical data. That's, I think, just the beginning. And looking at new trends, positive or negative. If we talk about safety, that is the negative side when eventually drugs are failing and development is stopped. This AI technology could help to identify much more quickly safety issues with your drug.
And I suppose that scale as well. I suppose you can do it with less human intervention or time. These things, it's impacting everything, isn't it, along the whole value chain?
Yes. Especially after drugs are approved, also to analyze real-world data. Because these data are flowing in, and with AI you will be able to analyze them much more.
And when it comes to hiring and building and scaling teams, what trial and error processes did you learn, or tips did you learn along the journey?
You need to get many advices from your colleagues from different departments, getting this candidate on the spot from different angles, be sure it's fitting well with the culture, with the team, and this you really need to get many colleagues, other colleagues to help you to do that. And that's also part of the journey, because Then once the candidate is in, he has met already also a few other team members or other colleagues from other departments, and that's helping also the onboarding. So it's about that. And then the next step I just mentioned, onboarding, is very important. You don't take someone and send him to his desk on day one. You need really to onboard. Onboarding process is very important.
On a softer skill side, what personality traits did you tend to hone in on as the hallmarkers of probable success?
It's the interview. You need really, when you do the interview with the candidate, you need to listen and read the subtitles. That's what I say. Because when you talk with people, you have always a subtitle. Either is it body language, but usually it's the way they express themselves.
Yeah, I've never thought of it as a subtitle. It's quite a good way
And
to put it.
And then listen to this little voice, because this little voice that gives you a trend, it's a negative trend, then it becomes a big trend once the people is on board. So listen to your little voice and then bring also others on board.
I take it you learned that through experience. Listen to the gut feeling.
Yes, exactly. That's by. And when I interview, I don't go into the detail of the detail. It's more a discussion, an exchange, an interaction to grasp all of these little voices.
We found that that's become a far more enlightening format of interview, and that most senior leaders now prefer that method. The screenings at the beginning are different, but once you really get to know each other, it's much less transactional. You can fully get under the bonnet, if you like, and see what you're buying. They can do the same thing as well, because I think right now it's super important that both people are onboarded, and you can't do that on a false pretense. So when we hire for biotechs in particular, they always want to dig into the scientific value proposition that's a differentiator. Yeah. But the leadership team is probably the most important factor. So if they buy into that leader and they actually can see themselves learning, developing, and being inspired by that person and the vision of the business, then that's always the key marker. And I suppose that's what we have to work on, is aligning those two. But it's super interesting. It really is.
Yeah, and it's a big responsibility to hire someone for that individual, because he will change his life. Eventually, he will move. He will change a lot that you don't know. And it's a big responsibility for the company, because you bring someone in that needs to fit in. So I always take it very seriously.
Yeah, and I think that's everything covered from our side, Christophe. We covered all of the key points I wanted to. I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, and it's been fun. And thank you for making time for me.
It was my pleasure. Good discussion. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
I look forward to having you back on Leading Beyond the Lab at some point in the next chapter.
Perfect. Whenever you want.
Thank you.
Goodbye.